Hello and welcome to this video. Today I wanted to present a web scraping project I built with Python. I wanted to take you through the code I use and the general process I go through. So I recently wanted to analyze some data around discs and frisbees using the sport of disc golf. I wanted to look at their flight characteristics and their physical dimensions and do some comparisons and some analysis. However, the only way to get all this data is to go to a website, and writing it down by hand would be too long and too cumbersome, which I'm glad we have web scraping abilities to do so. So what I'll be doing is I'll be going to a website called TryDisc that lists all the disc name, manufacturers, flight characteristics, and flight dimensions, and I'm going to be working on scraping this information from the web page. So one of the first things I like to do is just write down some general notes of what I think the process plan is. It's called Web Scraping Project. So this is kind of an overview of what I want the project to do. I want it to send request to the website, return with some data. I want to parse out the data and then save that data. And what I like to do is kind of in these mapping outs of what I want my program to do, I like to kind of list the libraries I may use. So I'm going to use requests. I think I'll probably use that. May need pandas, JSON depending on how the data comes back, and beautiful soup. I don't know if I'll need beautiful soup yet, generally in the early stages, but it's something I like to keep in mind about what I may need if I need to parse out the data from the raw HTML text. So now that we have a general concept of the script, let's go ahead and look at the website. So this again is the website. We can see it has tons of information on here. If I scroll down, and roughly 38 pages of data with different discs, their manufacturers, their flight characteristics, their flight dimensions. So it's a really all-encompassing, all-in-one web page that I can scrape all this data. And so first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this website, and I'm going to write my first version. So now that I know the website I'm going to use, I'm going to write this first version and just do some quick hit of the website to see if I can just get a positive return or positive request from this website. So I'm going to call my URL. I'm going to create a response, which is going to be equal to request.get URL, and then go ahead and print response. And once I run this, we'll see if we get a positive response, and we got a 200 response, so we're good here. So it would be nice if this website returned all the data in its raw HTML text. What I can do is I can hit Control U to pull up the source code, and this looks really short. So I highly doubt all the data is being shown in here, which is unfortunate because that'd make it a little bit easier for me just to pull that HTML text out and parse through it. So what we're going to have to do is look through its requests and responses when we actually call the web page, and parse out what's actually making the call and seeing if we can replicate that call from our Python script so that we can parse out the data. Alright, so now that I have a new Chrome rolled up, I will go ahead and hit F12 to open the developer window. Make sure I have the network selected and fetch/xhr selected as well, and I will go ahead and copy this website into the address bar up top, hit enter, and what I'll have to do is just kind of look through all this data, these requests, to see which one of these requests and responses actually contains the data I'm looking for. Alright, so I did find the actual request that brought back the data, so you can see the armadillo here with all its information. So the next thing I want to find is how this request is actually made. So I can click on the initiator and scroll down to the bottom, and I can see that when I type in this website, it'll do all these requests. So the next thing I want to test out is I want to see if I can just pull the raw JSON from this request right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. So now that I have that copied, and sometimes you may have to actually type it if it won't allow you to copy it. So let's go ahead and see if this returns a proper response. And we got a 400 response, so that means there was a initiator issue. So what we want to try to do is see if we can't replicate it. There's probably something wrong. Probably can't just request the data directly with this. So let's go ahead and copy this, and we can see what actually happens if we were to paste this into our web browser. And we can see that it just pulled up a GraphQL website. Alright, so after the backhaul was made and I posted this address into the web page, what I'm going to do next is just look at the actual request and response on the web page to see if I can replicate it or figure out what's going on. So if I go back to my actual request and I look at my headers, I can see that this is actually a post method, so I want to make sure I keep that in mind. And then if I actually go down or try to figure out where the payload is, we can see we want to try to structure our request to look very similar to what's going on here. So if I go ahead and pull this data out, so it's sending a data in a JSON, so we need to do a post request including this JSON data with it, and hopefully we should get back some of our data. Alright, so after basically copying in that data and reorganizing it, I updated my JSON data to mimic the JSON payload that was being done by the website. So let's see if I go ahead and get a proper response now. And I did not, because what I forgot to do was include the JSON in the actual request. And we got a 200 response, so we're good. So the next thing I want to do is check to see if we actually get the data. So let's go ahead and change this to print response.json to see if we actually get the data out. And yep, looks like we're getting the data, and a bunch of data. Alright, so it looks like it's pulling the data, but it looks like it's only pulling the first page of the data, and we want to be able to pull every single page of the data. So we want to try to investigate to see how we might create a loop or an iteration to pull the data for each page so that we can save that data off. So let's go back to our web page. We'll do some investigation, and just look at our initial payload. We can see that it's limiting it to 40, so we could try to adjust this limit in our request to see if that changes anything. It may or may not. but let's just go ahead and run it just to see what happens. So let's see if we can pull 80 and see what happens. And what we can also do is we can probably real quick, let's see if we can print the length of this JSON. Of the get data matrix. So it would be of data get data matrix to see if that changes at all. So we got 80. We got 40. So it looks like changing this limit does have some type of effect on there. So we can see that on our web page there's 38 or 40, roughly 40. So if we change our limit to the max, which would be 40 times 40, which is 1600, let's see if we're able to pull in all the data before it stops us. So actually, we can just pull in all the data just by changing this limit. If for some reason it was not working that way, we could test this offset and just change the value of this offset to like 40, or we could actually test it out. So what happens if we do limit 40 and offset 40? We get 40 back, but let's actually see if it's different from what we did before. Alright, so if we scroll up to the first one, we see you got Chainzilla. So let's go to page 2 and see. Yep. So again, we can adjust this request by either setting the limit or the offset. I'm going to keep this at 0 and just do one pull and do 1600. So the next thing I want to do is just go ahead and save this data. So the easiest way for me to save it is just go ahead and put it in a data frame, which is pretty easy to do because then I can just save it wherever. So let me go up and I'm going to import pandas as pd, pd.dataframe, and just to make sure I can print that df.head and just make sure it's working properly. Nope, and you know what? I need to parse out the actual information. There we go. Now we went ahead and put all that data in a nice little table, so it's a little bit easier to see and read. And what I can do now is just go ahead and save that to a CSV file on my drive. We'll call it thisdata.csv. We don't want the index. And let's go ahead and run it. Print out, check our files. And there we have it. We have now successfully scraped all this data from the web page in roughly 25 lines of code. Hopefully this video was informative for you. I look forward to doing some more Python tutorials in the future. And thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe and share this video. Thanks again for watching.